Mr. Vice President, how many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
After that, he got really angry too. Remember, he goes, "You're asking the wrong question. You got to talk to Donald Trump about his abuse of power, about how he abuses power and took America, and period." It's not. Here's the thing. That sentence, that quote of his, Joe Biden, now famous, "I never talked to my son ever about his business dealings," is now notorious for being probably the biggest lie or one of the biggest lies he's ever told. Because the quid pro Joe with Hunter, we know, was not the only time that Joe Biden has used his power of political influence to help his family members. Profiles in Corruption, Abuse of Power by America's Progressive Elite comes out today. It's a new book by Peter Schweizer, who wrote Clinton Cash. Here, let me run through. These are just five of the known Bidens who have basically benefited from Joe's political dealings. And first is his brother, James Biden. James Biden has been with Joe since the beginning. He ran the campaign. He was the finance chair of his 1972 Senate campaign. And after he was elected to the Senate, Joe would bring his brother along everywhere on every single trip. He would bring him on congressional delegation trips. They went to Europe. They went to Africa. They went to Ireland. They probably drank a lot while they were there because, well, you know, they're Bidens. And then he also, when he became vice president, was a frequent visitor at the White House. And one time he was at the White House was the same time a guy who ran a company called Hillstone International was at the White House. And wouldn't you know it, that after Joe Biden met with the head of Hillstone International and his brother, 3 weeks later, Hillstone announced that Joe's brother James would be joining the firm as an executive vice president. This is the kicker. The best line. James appeared to have little or no background in housing construction, but that did not seem to matter to Hillstone Construction. They made him an executive vice president anyway. Does this not seem very familiar? Burisma, an energy company in the Ukraine, hired Hunter Biden, who, oh yeah, had zero experience in anything, let alone energy in the Ukraine. But let's go on. 6 months later, the firm announced a contract to build 100,000 homes. Guess where? War-torn Iraq. Guess who gave them that contract? The United States government. It was part of a $35 billion deal to rebuild Iraq after the war. The Iraq project was massive, perhaps the single most lucrative project for the firm ever. A group of minority partners, including Joe Biden's brother James, stood to split around $735 million from a government contract signed off by the President of the United States, his brother's boss. Hunter Biden, we all know about Hunter Biden. We all know that what happened with Burisma, but Hunter Biden, that was one of many. Hunter, Joe's son, launched businesses fused to his father's power that led him to lucrative deals with a rogues gallery of governments and oligarchs around the world. Sometimes he would hitch a prominent ride with his father aboard Air Force Two to visit a country where he was courting business. Other times would be way more discreet, but they always involved foreign entities that just wanted something from his dad. Dr. Howard Krein is Joe's son-in-law. He married Joe Biden's daughter, Ashley. He had a new startup company. And when we say startup, we mean startup. It was 3 people who didn't even have a website. Yet in 2011, they were ushered into the Oval Office to meet with the president. And that same day were introduced at a press conference. The next day, Startup Health took off. Howard Krein, married to Joe Biden's youngest daughter, was the chief medical officer. Startup Health offers to provide companies technical and relationship and advice in exchange for a stake of their business. What does that mean? Give us half your business and we'll give you direct access to the president and vice president of the United States. Frank Biden, Joe's other brother, landed in Costa Rica aboard Air Force Two in 2009. It was the first time a sitting president had visited since 1997. His dream was to build a golf course, a casino, and a country club in the jungles of Costa Rica. On October 4th, the Costa Rican Ministry of Public Education signed a letter of intent with Frank's company and backed the project with $6.5 million taxpayer dollars. That's not all. Through Joe and Barack Obama, he was able to get contracts of $10 million in Jamaica, $47.5 million in Jamaica, and all through the Caribbean. And finally, one you may not know about, but probably one of the longest signs of political corruption in the Biden family was Joe's sister, Valerie. She's been with him since day one, ran every single one of his campaigns, managed his presidential run in 1988, managed his presidential run in 2008. She was a senior partner in a company called Joe Slade White and Company. The company consisted of two people, Joe Slade White and Biden's sister. Valerie got over $2.5 million in consulting fees taken directly from the donations to the Biden for Senate and Biden for President campaign. Hey, sis, why don't you manage my campaign? I'll just funnel $2.5 million from the campaign coffers into your shadow company so that you can retire a very rich. Like, could you imagine what this guy, if he did all of this for all of these people as just a senator and a vice president, could you imagine how much advantage he would take of you and me and our taxpayer dollars if he ever got anywhere close to the Oval Office?